can I share a really good people care group numbers thing? Is everyone here now?
Yep.
So have a look at the person immediately to your right and your left. So those two people are your two people to check in all the time. So whenever you come back to a group situation, you say, is everybody here? And it's your job to check in with those two people. And it always works when people actually hold that, so it creates a web of connections.
I like the addition of two people on either side, because that way if you only choose one and you're both not there, then no one knows. That's happened a few times. Thanks, Ollie. That's really useful. So this morning we talked about teaching pioneers and about learning, culture, and a little about learners. In this session, we're really diving into learning styles. It's something we've all had experience with, and we keep that relevant as teachers, always having this awareness of learners' needs, learners' styles, and how to adjust our education, our teaching, our facilitation in ways that accommodate those. Does anybody need, before we get going, another cushion or a chair? Comfortable, looking comfortable. Beautiful weather. Thanks, Margaret River. Really, really put it on for us. Yes, very lucky. Last time I was under here, who was on that PDC when it was 50 degrees for 5 weeks? I was suffering. Oh gosh, just kept going. It was like 5 days, wasn't it, Lisa? Yep, so yeah, we're very lucky on this course. So when we think of learning, when we consider learning has two major components. The first one is perceiving. What's perceiving mean when we think about learning?
What their perception is of what you're saying, maybe?
Yeah, what someone's perception is of what's said.
You're filtering it as it comes in.
Yeah. Filtering information, filtering something as it comes in. What else?
Sensory input.
Yeah, sensory input.
Your interpretation of words and body language
Yeah.
is different to the person that's next to you.
So they're all spot on. It's how the information or the ideas come in, and we often use our senses to perceive. We're smelling the sourdough as we're learning about it. We're looking at things. We're looking at posters. We're looking at each other. We're listening. Perceiving, the first part of learning, is often about senses. What might the other part of learning be? And Jill's not allowed to answer because she's looking at my notes.
Interpreting or making sense.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Sarah?
Cognition, like your processing of the mental processing.
Processing's the word that we use. Interpreting, making sense is a perfect way to expand on that. So we perceive and then we process. And they're the two main components of learning. Now, processing doesn't always happen with our senses. Processing is about often our mind, our thoughts, and where we can store that information, where we can hook it on. And also our body. Who learns by doing? Yeah. So that can really help us to process. We learn something, we do it, we're deepening that learning. Can you see that?
Yes.
Can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah?
Yeah, perfectly actually.
Beautiful. So here on this graphic, we've got our perception here and our processing here. And we're going to expand, we're going to go one level on this graphic, perception and processing we've just spoken about. We're going to talk about these parts, and then we're going to go deeper still in the third part of the session. Around here, we've got some little characters that are doing stuff. They're actually all learning about sourdough. And up the top, we've got the words feel and sense. So if we're learning about sourdough, how would we feel and sense?
With our hands.
Yeah, get our hands in there, smelling,
Taste it.
tasting,
Texture.
the texture. So Yeah. Rub it on your face, let it flow down overnight in through the oven grills and then scrub it off in the morning. Yeah, who's been there?
6 slices consecutively.
At least. So this is a way that we can learn, feeling and sensing. But over here we've got watching and observing. In our sourdough example, how are we learning if we're watching and observing?
Watching how somebody else does it.
Yeah, if somebody's modelling that. Maybe if they're not there in person, other ways we can watch and observe. YouTube video.
Also watching and observing the nature of the dough that you're working with.
What it's telling you.
Yeah. In the process. That's a great example, Wayne. Thank you.
Imagination. You can watch and observe potential situations in your noggin.
Oh, wonderful. Yes. Down here, another way of learning. Thinking and conceptualizing.
Is that not just what Jasper says?
Oh, so there's imagining, yeah? We can bring in like a video reel in our minds of what we saw yesterday, what we saw our auntie do yesterday. But then there's also, how would thinking and conceptualizing differ from that sort of visual play?
Looking at the reason behind, or at least guessing what might be happening that's causing the thing that you're observing.
Yeah.
So then you're talking about like potential outcome? Is that the idea?
Well, if it's sourdough, for example, when I see it starting to bubble, my mind's doing all the stuff about, oh, hooray, we've got yeast growing, it's putting off carbon dioxide, it's developing some oven spring and so on.
And if we're learning about a new skill in a thinking style or conceptualizing style, where might we get that information from? Books. Yeah, we might go to the library. Yeah, we might watch a documentary.
Listen to the teacher.
Listen, we might read a recipe.
You can fit it into the other things that we've experienced that might be similar.
Yeah,
Into a context.
creating those links.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like I've made a different kind of bread before. You could, I'm not sure if it's part of the conceptualisation stage, but if I've made a regular loaf of bread before, then I can take parts of that to know that, well, this will be similar, but I've got to do these things differently. And planning for not undesired outcomes as well with that
Yeah.
stage.
Yep. Yeah, if you're going to make sourdough cakes, so that's cakes where the raising agent is sourdough. March flies already. Don't worry, they love me, you'll be fine. Okay, so you can make cakes with like sourdough starter. So instead of using bicarb baking powder, the leavening agent can be sourdough. People recommend, if you're going to go to that extreme, try sourdough bread first. So yeah, making those connections, providing some context. What have we got over here? Doing and trying. As far as learning goes, pretty self-explanatory, getting stuck in. And you know, on PDCs, how is this one particularly relevant for our learners on a PDC?
Because you learn the most from mistakes.
Yeah. People love learning by doing, learning by trying.
It's one of the challenges with PDC though, isn't it? Because there's limited time to do too
Everything.
I think the confusion is it's a design course. Yeah, and so the practical is design. Yeah. But a lot of people think the practical is compost making and garden bed building.
So they're doing is like sectors and zones when you're sitting down and doing that for your own property or as a group.
Rather than techniques.
And also naming those expectations of the course up front at the start can really help with people's expectations. Even if there's a pre-course email and it says all the things and the event says everything, that it's a design course and we don't do much composting, people still really want that on the first day. And what this course does brilliantly is offers gardening with dough every morning. So that's a great way to get around it.
Or a living smoke book.
Yeah, which is all practical.
Totally.
Totally practical. Thanks, Shani. Any questions about this graphic?
few years ago.
Oh, thanks. So I said we'll go one step deeper. Each of these actually overlaps in a quadrant, and they're actually what we call our learning styles. These are kinds of learning, but our learning styles are where they overlap. So now I'll hand out a worksheet. Have a look, have a read, chat with your partner. Chat with the person next to you. What learning style do you most identify with? And we're keeping in mind here, like when we spoke about different teaching styles briefly, this isn't our personality, it's not who we are. Learning styles are also not locked in for life, but they're tendencies, and this is a useful tool that can help us understand our own learning. And as teachers, what's the value of this exercise?
We understand the link between learning and teaching.
Yeah. What's the risk if, as teachers, we have no understanding of different learning styles?
We do what's comfortable for us, not what will get the most learning for our learners.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel.
Yeah.
Might only address one kind. We work with our learning style or our preferences. Anything else?
Won't even be cognizant of the fact that some people are grasping it or liking that style.
The overall class concentration is going to wane. Even if some people are getting it, the rest that aren't will be distracting or disruptive and lose control of the room.
Yeah. So as teachers, this is really valuable information. Also helps us with empathy for other people who maybe react differently to what we would. Understanding of our learners, appreciation that they maybe have different gifts than what maybe we have. So it helps us, this is a life skill, it helps us to step outside of our own minds for a little bit. So take your piece of paper, have a read, have a chat with the person next to you about what resonates with you.
Open to your left or right?
Oh, self-organised, doesn't really matter.
Ooh, pretty.
Where the conversation. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I remember because I came into the PDC with only a little bit of gardening knowledge, I'm very, very basic, and coming in and just learning like everything else. It wasn't just like just what was taught in
And lean towards you.
And imagine.
Yeah, so does it lean into that reflecting a bit? Because it's something to know well there's something
There is none in the stuff that I do. But I don't like seeing that's the big the other way. So that where it says that's
yeah, right. Out of context, yeah.
Saw a bit of fly throwing, a bit of chatting. What was interesting that came out of your conversation?
None of us were directly in any category. We may have one that we relate to most, but there's still a lot of things from other parts that we would.
Did someone else find that?
Yeah. And I'm questioning the value of us putting them in polarity with each other. Where's this take us? Because there's sometimes those value statements, this would be better if I were here or something. Sure.
So the value of separating into the categories or of the matrix?
Of them seem to be in some kind of tension with each other.
What do people think about that? Interesting point.
I found it really useful to see it as a spectrum. What was really obvious to me as soon as I looked at it is that as a homeschool parent, my 13-year-old is diagonally opposite to me. So he's like a mix of these two and I'm a mix of the other two. And the last 3 years of homeschooling have been a challenge for me to see his learning style as valid
and useful, and for learning to happen, maybe not what would work for me. I've had to sort of expand myself, and I learn from the way he does stuff, and as well as him being able to learn some strategies from the way I do things.
I often wonder how much it's the nature-nurture thing.
Yeah.
You know, like Brenna's very visual, but you've been doing 20 years of illustrating and drawing and whatever, whereas I don't do as much visual stuff. And so I look at it and I go, I need to focus more on visual learning to improve my ability to learn. You know, like I went to university for years and I came out of university going, I don't want to think anymore. Help, turn off the brain, get out of here, because that muscle had just been flexed so much.
I've just got a different one. I feel like the different styles of learning for me are actually a process I go through with learning. So I like to watch things and think about it and consider. So the reflector, the theorist is sort of stage one for me, and then making the plan, and then I do it. And if I miss out any of those stages, I don't learn as well. Like if I just learn through watching, listening, thinking about it, I'll forget it if I don't get to actually put the practice into action. Or if I just get told, go do the thing, it's scary because I'm like, but I haven't got to see it yet or think about it, or so I won't learn as well because I'm stressed. So for me, it's actually a process of all of them.
Thanks, Sarah. Anyone else find that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Text and
Oh, how does that affect our teaching then?
Guess you got to cover all bases. Like I kind of see them as complementing each other. You know, like you might learn the theory, but then when you get hands-on, it might seal the deal in your brain. So just making sure it's covered.
Maybe some content is naturally tailored to, like if it's building or something, it might be more pragmatist and theorist, you know, like rather than social permaculture, it might be more accommodating.
Yeah, so we're hearing, matching things to the topic and to the outcomes.
Yeah.
Great point, Jasper. Someone else learn something about their own learning style? Right?
If I give some examples. Yeah, so please. Which of you really like to do pretty hard physical work all day and work with your hands all day? Not really have rest, not really be thinking, that's not even reading. Like that's,
sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes it's not the same. You're really happy when you're physical. In a distinctive way, you feel fulfilled. That's one way of being. Another way of being is when you're really happy thinking. That's the opposite quadrant. You like to do research and you like to crack numbers and you like to do it. So in a group, if you're working on a group design and someone says, we need soil samples, the person who is acting is like, I'll go and get the soil samples, where we get them from. And they're away. Or I'll collect the plant samples and fresh them and have them ready for the plant. The other person says, I'll do the research. I really like looking up this stuff and knowing. So this person sits in the group and then says, but how's it going to work? Is it practical? Is it going to work? They love that, how does it work best? And this person is a bit of a user, because that's me, who says there's a better way of doing it. Let's do it this way. They do it one way, then somebody say there's a better way. So in a way, it's what makes these people love ideas. This is E equals MC squared. This is Einstein taking a massive data and forming a concept happily forever, dealing with squiggles on a blackboard. This person is making it work because they're practical. This person is practical in a way that they're going to make it all happen. That's exaggerated, but sometimes you think, I've been a research scientist. I don't want to sit at a computer all day, every day, backing down and doing statistics. It's a clear test. I like to be where the ideas are. I like to be thinking about things. I like to do a bit. These people with much prefer to be hat makers, milliners, carpenters, something. That's where deep satisfaction comes. So for most of it, there's a place where we actually feel fairly satisfied and fulfilled. You can be on the boundaries a bit. But it's also what you don't like will also help tell you where you like to put yourself. And in any design group, and any group, these people are going to be a story in some way. It's only learning. It's not about who you are. It's not musical or mathematical. It's much more about how you learn. So you can test yourself against those ideas. These people say how. These people say why not. There's another way. These people say theory's coming up. I've got a theory about that. It's often in their language. I think, I feel, I do. You can hear it in vocabulary. And it's fairly clear within minutes of being in a course. You say, who would like to speak? These people and these people will answer first. And you know not to put the others on the spot because they want to think for a minute before they answer. So it's a help just with the group. Okay.
Very helpful, thank you.
Thanks, Ro. So the invitation is now for the next 15 minutes. We'll get into groups of 4. So the person you were just sharing with matches up with another pair. If there's 5, that's okay. And you're imagining that you're a group on a PDC in a soils class, core topic, soils. One of you can role play the role of teacher. Hi class, we're doing soils right now. And the rest of you are role playing different learning styles. And I'd encourage you to choose one that is different from your main learning style. And your role as a student in this role play is to ask for what you would like from the teacher in a soils class. What's some examples?
Wheelbarrow.
Wheelbarrow, what practical stuff? Yeah. What else? How else do we want to learn soils?
References.
We want references.
Images.
Microscope, okay, perfect. This is the sort of stuff. So you're communicating that in the role play. Yeah. You want to know why we're doing it.
What's so good about soil, huh?
Yeah, why are we even on a PDC?
I'm solutions focused. I want to know if there's a problem, I don't know how to fix it.
There you go. And if you've got ideas for other people, you're welcome to help them out. If you totally exhaust soils, move on to another topic. You've got about 15 minutes for this one.
Cool.
It may be useful to write some of these ideas down for your future teaching.
On soil, is it?
Yeah. How can we improve soil?
All right, so.
Okay.
Soil.
Can you show me some things? Can you show me the top?
What was the one that was Theory.
But that was like
To affiliate myself with people who practice
that was a good exercise. Yeah, that was that one.
It's getting a little bit heated over here. A bit of taking the rolls to 110%.
Oh, yeah.
What was going on? What was the dynamic in your group?
Yeah, we were right into our different learning styles and just...
Yeah, we didn't have a teacher's role, we all took one role.
Mm-hmm. The teacher was the water bottle. We just bombarded it.
What's some examples of ways you could teach soils for the reflector learning style? What did we come up with?
Role play of plants.
Yeah, role play of plants.
Yeah. Sorry, I have a class where one person gets to be the plant, put a hat on, that's a plant, and your roots, your arms and legs are the roots, and everyone else gets to be mycorrhizal fungi or whatever other soil elements.
Yep.
It's fun.
And like as the plant, you've got your pockets full of biscuits, and you're just like giving biscuits to the.
I use lollies, but I know it's part of
Easy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great example. Any more?
Being really clear on why it's important.
Yeah.
Imagining like it sort of got worse or got better.
Thanks, Jasper.
Taking a bit of a broader view of different types of soils. It's sort of like, why is this one? What's the pros and cons of like we were using stuff like, what's the pros and cons of, like, you know, using ironstone gravel for your driveway versus using limestone road-based activity.
Sure.
That's a good one for the reflector as well as the activist in terms of
Yep.
And
pros and cons.
for the reflector, considering the transition and flow between like gravelly or sandy soil to clay soil, and what creates what soils, do you think?
Do you have one over here? It's alright if you don't.
I was just thinking about that. You go and do something and you come back and you reflect on what
Yeah, brilliant. Great example. What about for the activists?
Soil tests.
Soil tests?
Go out and just have a dig and a feel and a look and a...
Yeah.
Yeah, we had the, like, trying to dig down and seeing the layers within the soil. Dig.
The profile, great. Wheelbarrow.
Edible science as well.
Oh.
You've always liked any science activity where you can eat it. So, like, we did a soil layer one with we don't even use Milo, but cocoa and I don't know, powder and lollies and biscuits crumbled up, and then you can pour water through it and see how it goes.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, yum. Hello. Good afternoon tea idea for a PDC. Next one, theorist.
Oh, well, I'd just look at papers on,
Yeah.
on research papers on soil and soil biology.
Yep.
Sorry.
Sorry, just look at papers on soil biology and soil in general, like research papers.
Handouts.
Yeah.
Handouts.
Yeah. Crunch numbers, look at
Graphs.
like
Yep.
the aspects of soil that make it more or less fertile or more or less.
And good ratios of ideal soil.
Like pH balance.
Yep.
I just wanted to organise the data into a chart.
We had a PowerPoint on the evolution of soil from like barren rock through to what we have now on Earth. It was very cool.
In your PDC, or the water bottle organised that just then?
Water bottle grabbed it for us.
Oh, great.
Very good teacher.
I can tell.
We've ever had.
My teachers are here.
It's all right, no love lost in this course. And pragmatist, couple of examples.
I think you need like an activity, like a problem for them to solve. You know, like if you had soil that had this issue, how do you fix that?
Yeah. What'd you get? Got notes there.
You get notes in this book here. For the pragmatist, we also have like tests and experiments. Live plant examples, like pulling out plants and looking at the little
Nodules.
nodules.
Yep.
And I think if I could just, that's really important to the transparency of the course, outline, content.
Yep. Building that safety for people that need it. Did we learn anything about learners in this activity?
It's really hard to be the learner that you're not.
I was thinking, Brenna, though, that we've got the styles are there and we have to flex to them, but we were sort of mucking around a bit to the point you could get paralysed because somebody's saying, no, we've got to stay inside, someone says we've got to go outside. But being true to the content, obviously, is important.
Yeah. Someone want to add to what Rod's saying?
It's very hard to cover all of them in 10 minutes. If you had a longer course, you would include practical examples and research time.
For sure.
Can't do that.
We just sort of
Yeah,
identified that, given some past history about where people have put themselves into certain categories, that can be a slightly divisive thing, or some people can then, feel that way about it, like, oh, you're different to me. Whereas your amazing and beautiful diagram here kind of intuitively makes you realise that whatever you are, there's great value in all those other things.
Present.
Shani?
I just want to tell a funny story.
Yep, go for it. Tell it to the group, not me.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So, the best teacher I've ever seen had taught her kids this with the year threes. And before they did any group work, they just quickly went around the circle and said what their learning style was or what they were trying to practice. So trying to practice being the other. And there was a group where they all basically went, I'm a theorist, I'm a theorist, I'm a theorist, I'm a theorist. And then they put their hand up and said, excuse me, miss, could we have someone who can do something?
Beautiful.
Unashamedly say, oh yeah, we need this person, whereas adults might need to be a bit more open with admitting that.
Oh yeah. But it's a story, I suppose, about the value of getting people to be aware as well, even in your class. Like not just you kind of analysing and figuring out, but getting them to be responsible for their own learning and their own learning style.
And there's that tension between, it's like with having a diagnosis or, you know, seeking out a diagnosis for, say, neurodiversity. Some people are all for it and it's changed their life and it's been crucial in their self-understanding, and other people don't like the idea of being categorized and having a diagnosis as kind of like a banner for them, and that's okay. We can take what we want from this, take the value from this exercise. It's broadly based on a sort of conglomeration of different people's work in this space, and if you look up learning styles, there are others out there with different names and slightly different focuses, but the main idea behind this is broadening our understanding of ourselves and also encouraging that empathy for learners in our classes. Anything else to add, Ro?
I think for some people it explains why Einstein wanted his son not to be a carpenter, and it created friction because they were two different types, and why isn't so-and-so like me? So it's even repeated in families where a child thought they should be more active or they should be more reflective, or why aren't they doing what I did, because of that lack of understanding that they need to do something that we're working with it. But ideally we want to move to our diametric opposite to some extent to be balanced. It's worth making that effort now and again. And just pushing along and saying, well, look, you know, let's all be more active here, or let's be more thoughtful about this. But yes, it's really quite important. It's very, very well used. Now, it doesn't describe your personality, it's just learning, and that's all it is. But it does mean that you can shift a bit in life. But on the whole, if you like doing research and love it, you're not going to change someone who wants to plant trees all day. Not in your lifetime. Next lifetime, yeah.
It's good reminder or reassurance for being okay with being uncomfortable. When you know that you're outside your habitual way of...
You appreciate others more for your complementarity. Thank goodness someone wants to do that, because that I don't want to do it.
I've done some learning recently at uni around learning styles, and there was 6 or 7 different learning styles. They'd expanded it to include people that learn through music and repetition, so people of lyrical mind, and people who learn through walking and maps of territory, so the actual physicality of place, and people who associate their learnings and knowledge by having that direct connection to a place, and whether that's a mental map or a physical map.
Well,
There was one more, but I can't remember what it was.
Were these like additions to the thing?
Complete giveaway. Complete giveaway of where you sit. I want more information. You read your class all the time, too. It's really nice. Yeah.
I just have terrible like retention. I just got everything.
So moving from learning styles towards... Oh no, I won't go that way. I'll start it this way. How do we measure intelligence in our society?
IQ. Pay grade.
IQ tests, grades.
No, pay grade.
Pay grade. Success, intelligence.
Millionaires are literally thousands of times smarter than us.
Billion.
Theorist, very much theorist-based.
Theorist-based qualifications. Yeah, so thinking rote learning. And if we're taking, you know, this IQ is kind of the gold standard of who's intelligent and who isn't, what is problematic about that? There are different kinds of intelligence. What was up here?
Is it that it's extrinsically motivated, or it inspires external motivation
Rather than intrinsic
Yeah. Validated. So
motivation.
Extrinsically by people on one point, to test people who are like-minded.
Right.
Test that only one type of person can interpret, and you're only going to get intelligence scores for that one kind of personality.
Measures your ability to do IQ tests.
Measures your ability to do IQ test. Did you have something like that in mind, Sarah?
In the bigger picture, it leads to our society being run and just suffering balance. Worse and worse.
Yeah, and people of one strength have most of the power.
So,
categorizing thing again.
How do you think an Indigenous person from Peru, the most intelligent person in their mountain community, would score on an IQ test?
It depends which culture set up the culture.
Which culture set it up? What language is it in? What other kinds of people do IQ tests favour?
Well-educated people through the system.
Well-educated, familiar with the system.
Formal education.
Literate, formal education, white middle class. So there is potential for bias in this measurement that was set up with fine intentions to be unbiased, but we all know that that's not as easy as some would like it to be. Just conscious of you three here. Are you too hot? If you need to move, go where you need to. Go. Oh, you're super hot, yeah. Got it going on in this corner.
My hat. It's got a hole on top.
Gone.
Frisbee.
Oh no.
Boomerang.
Doesn't want to go anywhere, does it?
So luckily, a lot of really creative people have put a huge amount of work into different ways of measuring and celebrating intelligence. Who's seen something like this before? Types of intelligence, more than one. Types plural, yeah.
Maybe that's what I was talking about.
It could have been. I mean, there's some overlap here, yeah, but they're all ways to broaden our understanding of ourselves and our learners. Lucky that hasn't been going all week. So we'll go through these briefly as a group. Starting up the top, visual intelligence. Who resonates with visual intelligence?
You.
Me? Yes? How could you tell?
Does that mean you look beautiful?
Does it? What do you think, Mason?
Your visual diagrams, your people doing the things, so you can visually see what's happening. I really like it because I am also quite visual too. So.
Yeah, so how do you find your visual intelligence comes out?
Observation.
Yep.
I can see what's happening.
Mhm.
Understand what's happening if I can see it. If it's a theory of something, it's like, well, it's a theory, it's not there.
Sarah? And before you start, I'm going to make this symbol, and if I do that, that means, quick reminder, let's speak to the group. Yeah?
Is there a symbol was? Thank you.
Go for it.
So one aspect of visual learning I've got is when I've got to memorize a bunch of text, I color code notes, so I remember text better.
Yeah, colours, big one. Who else does that? Yeah?
Diagrams.
Diagrams.
Put stuff on the fridge if I want to remember it, or in my bathroom. I have posters in my bathroom.
And has anyone ever had someone come up and say, hey, for visual learners, here's 5 techniques that help? Or are we more finding these techniques ourselves? Like, did someone tell you, Sarah, highlighters are the way to go, or was that a personal realisation?
Colours was personal, but I did have a teacher tell me how to lay out notes in a visual block format,
Great.
so it wasn't just a page of words.
Yeah.
So I had some help with the colours.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Good teacher.
Came up with that, but he has written ideas on ways to help the different people learn.
This is
Intelligence is learning.
Kolb's work, yeah? But there's...
Perception's massively increased, remember perception, by visual stuff. So if you say this tree and we're talking about bark and everyone looks so big, it will help memory and processing. So visual intelligence is really important in that first step in learning. So anytime you're outside and you refer to the landscape, you find better learning and better processing.
And that 75% of people lean towards the visual learning style as their dominant style.
Brenna.
Yes, Jasper.
At home, I've painted my walls, sections of them with blackboard paint,
Mhm.
and then I just sort of write things on there, and it helps me understand what's going on in my head. Is that visual, or is that more? Would you say it's more like theoretical?
Oh, what do we think?
It sounds like language to me.
Jawbone. So it's not
a
so
way
much
of capturing
theory in that.
Yeah, like when I first looked at this, I just saw a blur of words, and I looked at the pictures and it all made sense. I literally couldn't read the words.
Jasper, do you draw pictures or do you write words?
Words.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's not so.
So the word itself can be a trigger, but a whole bunch of words, it's often a different kind of intelligence or learning style coming out that way. It's also the repetition that you're using of writing it out again, having to think through those thoughts again, that's helping it sink in. And you're right, there is some crossover between them. So musical intelligence, who's thinking that might be me? Got a bit of that?
Ollie?
Who's thinking that's not me at all? Right, what's your experience, Ollie?
I just think recently about I've been teaching lots of Noongar language through music, and I find that it's a great reference for a lot of people, not just those that have practiced music more. I think that there's an innate memory. You know, Charlie, what's the book you read that part inspired your work? Memory Code or something like that. Just that song lines and singing and holding those things. And at the moment our heads are full of absolutely shithouse music and advertisements and all the screens that kids watch instead of meaningful songs about language and connection to country and whatever else.
Well, kids can remember 8,000 jingles by the time they're 10 or something. It's crazy. Can you please write, Charlie, Memory Code by Liam Kelly on the resources list when you get in for lunch? That would be fantastic. About traditional ways of knowledge in cultures that don't use written words.
Memory Craft is the other book where she talks about the practical tools.
Can I add something to the musical?
Yeah, please.
I'll forget why I walked into the kitchen, but then a song from 92 will come on and I don't know all the words. So music does help us retain, some people retain something that they would never think to use again.
And there's something that's really worth stressing in that. Music, mnemonics, tips and tricks for remembering things is useful for almost everybody in retaining information, and there are visual tricks as well that are useful for almost everybody in helping to remember things. So some of us might be drawn more to 2 or 3 of these than others, but that's not to say that some, like a song about the permaculture principles wouldn't be useful for us too. So yeah, thank you, Jill, that's a really great point.
Brenna, for some reason I think of ritual and music, and then that how that often connects the types of intelligence, like how much people generally tend to find that the music they listen to when they're younger, teenagers, early 20s, has a whole bunch of links to quite deep emotional community, belonging, etc. So it's almost like there's that. I think that the musical intelligence has been co-opted. And it's taken us away from meaningful ritual and connection to the village and emotional one. It's a linking intelligence in many ways, but when I look at it, I think they all are linking.
think there's a lot of shame around music. Like, it's so individualised now. If you get to sing or to participate in music, you have to be very good at it. Whereas I think in other times and places we would have sung as community. But now I think there's a shame thing around it. A lot of people think, I can't sing, I won't sing in public.
Watch it on the box.
I'll watch, yeah. But that's, Australia's Got Talent, and only those people can sing because it's really interesting.
Yeah, and something you notice when you visit other cultures,
how much they sing.
That shame around music, dancing, singing isn't there.
Yeah.
So we'll move through the rest quickly. Who knows someone who has physical intelligence, who is just good at all of the sports?
Yeah.
Yeah. How annoying are they?
That's fun.
An ex-partner of mine, we went to Canada and I was like, we're going to play curling, you know that thing with the silly brooms? And he's never done that before. He was heaps better than everyone. Damn. Physical intelligence. Some of us don't have it, you know, we'll fall over a flat driveway and every single sports ball in the vicinity comes right towards you. That's lack of physical intelligence.
Although I would say you can definitely develop it like all the others. So I'm a farmer and I work with, have farmhands, assistants on the farm, and quite often you have complete newbies who they pick up a shovel and they're kind of very awkward with it, but after a prolonged amount of time they become more skilled with the shovel.
Proficient. And that's again comes back to what Ollie was just saying about ritual. Is usually there's a physical element like a dance or a movement that, you know, in a lot of traditional cultures ties into the work that you're doing. So that's actually a way to train ourselves culturally to develop that.
That's connecting through to the physical elements of intelligence.
Yeah, it is. Logical. Who loved maths in school? Who hated maths in school?
Go teaching.
Maths
is so
Or a teacher who's very passionate about maths but doesn't necessarily know there are different kinds of intelligence and different learning styles. Social. What might social and solitary intelligence mean? These ones are interesting.
Social will probably be someone who can easily talk to anyone, whatever, and gain their knowledge of that. And so solitary is someone who is more reserved.
Yep, that's right. We're gonna keep talking to the group. We'll go.
I was going to say, is it
Pat then Kath?
An empathetic?
Please talk to all of us.
Is it an empathetic awareness? When you're socially intelligent, you're aware of the feeling and the flow of a group or a community.
I think so, but now I'm thinking, but hang on, so then what's solitary intelligence?
Yeah.
So maybe that's you're really happy by yourself and can absorb energy or recharge by yourself.
Kath had a point.
I'm fascinated that the ones that we've already talked about are easily identifiable as I am or I like, and suddenly we've hit some that I am very much not. I know I'm not social. I know I'm not physically coordinated. And a whole list of I can'ts, so that I'm aware that I'm socially inept. I'm aware that I've been clumsy all my life. I'm aware that, and interesting that some kinds of intelligence have been prized and honoured, and others completely ignored. I have never ever previously heard of solitary intelligence, and I'm loving it.
I mean, at the risk of going into zone 00 territory, I think there is credit to solitary intelligence being like your self-awareness and how you integrate with the world. And I mean, I think there's something to be said for being aware of your body and sensations and the cognitive processes that then allows you to contribute.
Is it about having a very intelligent relationship with yourself so that you can then have the best relationship possible with anyone and anything else that comes into your space?
Think of someone, you might not have met someone like this, but have you met somebody who can't be alone?
Yeah.
So they could possibly work on the solitary intelligence. It might not come so naturally to them. Who's met somebody who is totally social all the time, and they are the person you call if you're upset. They're the person who brings the groups together. They're exciting. That is their social intelligence, and we all have them to different levels. Question, Shani?
Sorry, you just said what I was.
I'm just wondering. I think like I just like, so if I'm just in a room to do some learning, I kind of just go downhill pretty fast. But if I can kind of talk about things with other people and collaborate, I just get so much more out of it, reinforce ideas. I'm wondering if that sort of learning is about bouncing ideas off, building up this collective understanding on a topic, and learning that way.
So, because they're always intertwined slightly, so verbal would be part of that.
Yeah, that's right.
I think
collaborative.
I think as a species, we were probably all of those things. And in our first world,
High social intelligence would probably mean that people are conscious of their impact on the group
lizard.
and where they stand and their contributions, so whether people are interested or not, or going to sleep, or included. I think a really good social intelligence for a teacher is probably making sure people are included without saying, poor Greta's bending over to look. So you don't go into the realm of welfare and curative and looking after. That would be too extreme, but aware of your impact and whether it's positive or whether people engage with it.
I would say that social intelligence is being socially aware and responding, having empathy for people and knowing what to do in the moment, reading people, being able to read the group or read other people and respond appropriately. And solitary intelligence to me sounds like good self-awareness, like knowing how I am. And I definitely feel more comfortable with that than the social one, and I'm often really envious of people who can just banter and respond really fast. And sometimes I have conversations with people and they're like, oh, like I don't have enough filter and I just say things too quickly, but I'm jealous of that ability sometimes.
How do those two relate to emotional intelligence? Because I suppose that's an element that kind of overlaps a lot with both.
Beautiful segue.
Thanks, Charlie. Who feels they have emotional intelligence? Yeah? How's it work for you?
I feel that I am very comfortable with my emotions, all of them. I'm happy to sit with them and let them do what they need to do. I feel I can act appropriately on them. And I feel I can also hold space for other people when I recognise them having an emotional moment.
Pickles, anything to add?
Yeah, building on that and just being attuned to how everyone is at any given time. Sometimes too much into that realm. It's a balance of, as you learn as you get older, how to not put too much focus on accommodating everyone's emotions. That's how I feel it plays out more for me.
Have we met people who lack emotional intelligence? We live with a few in our intentional community. That makes meetings fun, doesn't it?
I worked in one of my jobs previous. If I wanted a purple 3-ton excavator with pink dots on it there tomorrow morning, it would be there by this fellow. But the trail of bodies wounded and screwed. Got the job done.
Happens a lot in permaculture too, doesn't it?
Conversely, part of emotional intelligence is to be aware when you're being too empathic and soaking up the energy from other people so much that you're not able to be present enough to do the teaching.
But wouldn't having good emotional intelligence make you aware of that, like about yourself? And
That's exactly what I said.
Is it?
Makes you
I'm a bit
aware of it, so that you can guard against being the sponge that you might otherwise have been.
it's really interesting to be in that space where you can see that you are absorbing too much because you are aware of your emotions, but not being able to do much with it at that time. So you're like, I know I need to manage this, and I'm also absorbing everyone's emotions at the same time, and then your head sort of explodes. So it's a practice.
I feel like that's much more. Sorry, I'll jump up. So, I can't help but feel like that's much more in keeping with true emotional intelligence, because everyone's empathetic and everyone has emotions.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of whether you have self-moderating. You know the influence of your emotions and others. The influence of others' emotions and yours, and you have this like ability to moderate and self-regulate and basically just make use of these sorts of things in an effective way, like an intelligent way.
Yeah, brilliant point. We'll hear from Sarah and then we're going to move on. Sarah Faye?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm repeating something that's already been said. Quite possibly has, but I think another aspect of emotional intelligence is being able to, say, hold possibly contrasting emotional states as both being valid and relevant at the same time. So especially say in the context of being maybe in a community setting where you're both a teacher and a social friend with a person, and a scenario comes up and your role as a teacher and your emotional response as a teacher is possibly quite different to what your emotional response as a friend would be. And both are valid, but there's a time and a place for both. And so if you're in the role of a teacher, you have to hold your emotion, your own emotion, but also not say, oh, I'm not allowed to feel that. But yeah, so knowing the differences and when to express them in a constructive.
Just quickly coming back to that original question, I think that's the play between the social and solitary intelligence, where knowing, the two boundaries creates emotional intelligence.
Yeah, it's like some people have an idea of emotional intelligence as being like, I'm receptive to people's emotions, I can read people really well, that makes me emotionally intelligent. But if you're using that to then kind of say really inappropriate stuff or kind of sledgehammer people with the truth, or otherwise just like undercut people's judgment and assume that they're an idiot because they're feeling a certain way at a certain time, that's not actually emotional intelligence, it's just simply being perceptive. Well, yeah, I don't know. That's a very extreme example. Like, but like that's just merely being perceptive or being emotionally maybe experienced or something like that. It's not actual intelligence.
So we had a lot more to say about this model of measuring intelligence than we did about the poor old IQ test. But I just encourage you to bring this awareness forward, and like with the learning styles, there are variations on this. That's cool. It's just a tool for understanding. What do we have next? Yes, it's not a snake, don't worry. Different learning styles, different kinds of intelligence. We have different learners. How do we reach as many learners as we can without getting so bogged down in all of the things that we've got to do and all the learners and learning styles and everything that comes with that? So we've got this very simple acronym, CAPS, and we think about including knowledge, attitudes, practices, and skills. So here up at knowledge, if we're covering these four, we're doing a pretty good job of alternating our style enough that we're probably including most people most of the time. Up here at knowledge, we've got theory, data, and dates. So in our PDC, what's an example of a way of teaching that incorporates knowledge?
Graphs and factual.
Graphs, facts. The book, assuming you're not pointing at Bill with the horse. Bill outside with a horse is knowledge. Yep, all the dates, the data, the things we see on the PowerPoint, the things we might see on our worksheet. Second, attitude. We've got philosophical discussions, worldview, opinions, Dan Palmer's forte. Let's crack open people's minds about different ways of seeing the world, imagining new futures. We can't move towards what we haven't imagined, yeah? This happens in a PDC organically. We don't program a whole class on breaking open people's minds and creating inspiration. It happens from the morning tea conversations. It happens from everyone being in the same room and the passion and enthusiasm of the educators. You do your PDC, it's like, oh yeah, I think I learned some things, but gosh, I'm passionate about life now. Attitude, that's in there. Practices, we've got demonstrations, site visits, videos, putting things in practice. Other examples from a PDC?
Not using packaging in the food.
Oh yeah, modelling.
Yeah.
Maybe being out on the landscape, looking at the key point, looking at the high point,
Yeah.
identifying ridges.
That's a great one. Or the layers of a forest, actually going out there. And then skills, so make, do, plan, draw. Here we're looking at contour and we're actually using the dumpy level, or we're using the A-frame. We're making an A-frame, we're drawing an A-frame, yeah, getting that practical stuff in. So CAPS is a handy one to keep in mind if that's useful for you. And down here, you may notice during the course of this week, we're moving through these figures. So one way of looking at a learner-teacher relationship is that people start out quite dependent. If we're talking about how to transplant seedlings, teacher will show the student how to do it first. The next step is semi-dependence. They do it together. The third step, independent. The student is practicing transplanting seedlings at their own place and coming back and telling the teacher about it. And then autonomous is what we're really aiming for in our education, where the learners then become our peers. They become our colleagues. Any sustainability course, retro suburbia course, permaculture design course, agroforestry course, the aim is to empower people to continue their learning after the course, to have those skills, to know where to look it up, and to then become our peers. Other permaculture teachers, other permies in their own way, running Perth City Farm, you know, these are the things that we're looking for in our important permaculture or other sustainability courses. And you see the flow of the PDC, first day, lots of information, yeah, this course as well. By the end, groups are doing their group design projects, or for different PDC, their individual design projects autonomously, more or less. Questions about this?
And when did we do the course in Ballarat? Or 3 years later they're teaching it. And the teacher sits back and listens to the colleague.
Oh, really?
That's you.
Oh, when I did, we taught the course in Ballarat, but I was in Blue Mountains.
That's right. Yeah.
And at 3 days' notice, Hannah Maloney had to cancel for good reasons, as teacher, and Ro called me up and said, do you want to go teach this course? All right, give it a crack. Okay.
It makes me think of a similar course to this was done about 10 years ago with the Ross Mars and Dave Coleman was there of it saying, come on, next generation permaculture teachers, get into it. And Jodie started teaching PDCs from that, and since done 20, and Charles Otway and Terra Perma happened, so that exactly happened from that course as it will from this one.
And Jeff's there like, yep, got this all started. Thank me later.
just sorry, just to quickly to return to something just there, you had independent and autonomous.
Mm-hmm. What do we think? The difference between independent and autonomous?
You're still reporting. When you're independent, you're able to do the task, but you're still reporting back to your supervisor or whatever.
Okay.
That's how TAFE works. Certificate 1, Certificate 2, Certificate 3, Certificate 4 as to the skill set.
And what were the 3 words again? Make, we do.
I do, we do.
Thank you.
I do,
we do, you do.
2 seconds left.
Yes, I surely can. This one? Autonomous. Got it? It'll be up on the wall. Some wall somewhere. A lot of posters from today. Can't keep it up at this rate. There'll be no trees left in the world. So to sum up, we're going to look at the qualities that we know learners have. Again, things in this course are based on evidence. People have put in lots of hours reading books, pondering and making experiments to find out what best practice education is, and that's what we're practicing in this course. So learners bring different qualities to a course. There is a difference between adult and child learning needs often, but there is also overlap. So how do you feel about reading these off? Yeah, first one to the group.
The group, not just to you. Bring knowledge and skills. It's very hard to read when you're looking over there.
It's a challenge, sorry. You're doing beautifully.
Like to be treated as individuals.
Oh, hang on, we'll go through. We'll pause here, we'll pause here. Pause here, yep.
Actually read the heading. Second covered page.
Learners' inherent qualities. So we heard they bring knowledge and skills. Who on this course feels that they've brought some knowledge and skills? Great. Yeah. Problematic if we don't recognise that this is a reality. We imagine that our learners know nothing. Has anyone had that experience where they feel the teacher's being condescending? Yeah? Or like explaining the most excruciatingly basic things like you don't know, when they could have asked if that knowledge was there. So easy to avoid as teachers.
There's a lovely Vietnamese phrase, Noi Neo Viet Zoi. Talks too much, we know already.
What was
that? You can have the opposite too, where a teacher assumes you have a certain level of knowledge and they're talking up here and you don't have that basic level, and it's like, no, go back a few, I need to come back down to this and, you know, have that knowledge filled in.
And so how do we get around that issue on this course?
By lots of discussion.
Discussion, ask, constantly monitoring, constantly checking in. The danger with just getting up and talking is there's no monitoring. You can maybe read some body language.
Facial expressions.
Maybe, yeah. If you're attuned to body language, facial expressions, but you're getting minimal input. So great point.
So just on that, like in some of the PDCs I've been on, like because the PDC is so broad, you will have experts in, you know, almost any of the subjects.
Yeah.
But experts aren't normally good at pitching what they know at the level that you need it for the PDC for the group, and they will just talk on and on and on if you open it up to what knowledge people have. So how do you deal with that?
How do we deal with that?
How do everybody deal with that?
Come back tomorrow or the next day.
Park it and discuss it later.
Yeah.
Shani?
Sometimes with those people I've actually said, that is fantastic. Do you have some newspaper clippings? Do you have some research papers? Do you have whatever? And we have a special chart that they can go and put that stuff up with their name, and then if someone wants to then talk to that person more deeply.
Really useful can be curating that group awareness, so the class code. Sometimes necessary to stick up a poster, are we all respecting the voice space, as a reminder. Little tricks like that. I've seen Ro go and just physically stand next to someone who kept talking and having a quiet word with them afterwards. Because remembering, as hard as it is for some quiet people to speak up, it's often as hard or harder for some people to regulate how much they're speaking. And so somebody who seems to be speaking a lot could actually be trying so hard and only talking 10% of what they really want to. So that compassion really helps, and how you deal with that as the teacher really sets a tone for the class. We'll hear two more and we'll move on to the next point.
From a teaching point of view, you need to be prepared to respond. So if you're looking at your class and they're nodding off, you don't just plough on. You have to have some other strategies prepared to wake them up and re-engage.
Yep, that's right. Johnny? You sure?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. What have we got next, Steph?
Like to be treated as individuals.
Who, as a learner, likes to be treated as an individual? Not, oh, you lot, oh, I've got an online course at the moment and the facilitator's always saying, oh, you're all so beautiful, you're all so gorgeous. I'm like, you're teaching a facilitation course. It's like this grouping, constant grouping. We're individuals in a group. Thoughts on this one?
Speaks for itself.
Next one, Steph?
Working cultures that aren't as individualistic
Ah.
as Australia.
What would you say to that, Ro?
They still like in the class for your response to be individual, even though they prefer to work in groups and do individual work. And other responses, they're different, but they still like to be known by name and talked to and greeted each morning and said hello. All that stuff where you treat people as people is important.
Thanks, Ro.
Thank you. Often not confident.
Who feels a bit nervous on the first day of a course or the whole way through? It is such a common pattern and we tend to think we're the only ones that feel that way. It's almost universal. They say when you're organising the catering for a PDC, have a big hearty meal like a stew on the first night. What do we eat on the first night here? Because people need their comfort food, they need to feel safe. So as teachers, we're holding that, and we design our courses to really contain that. We're not expecting people to stand up and talk for an hour in front of the class by themselves in the first session. You know, you build up and you build up activities like this. On the second day, people are often a lot more comfortable speaking in the group than in the first morning.
Learn better when involved.
Who's found that to be true for them? Yeah. Next one.
Prefer that is tell people why something's relevant. So you might feel not involved, and what are we doing this for? I'm not involved in this. This is not my life. If you can book in the beginning or end of your sessions, this is important to know because that is a really important statement to help people get involved as well as individual commentary. Bring them in.
Prefer to cooperate.
So as a learner, when you sign up to a course, is your headspace, oh gosh, I hope I don't have to see anyone, talk to anyone, or abide by any rules, or sit quietly, or talk when I'm asked to? Or generally, people come with goodwill as learners.
Sometimes they're dragged along by somebody else, those people. No, seriously, like a partner will say, please come to this course, and then this other person is there. So they are out there, but they often don't come.
And generally people are still polite in, you know, groups of new people, but Ro has an example from prisons when people didn't choose to be there necessarily. Are people cooperative in that environment, or depends?
Often not, because they bring a lot of animosity in the group. So that animosity is there right from the start. We're all sitting. You know, and that sort of thing's going on. It takes quite a lot to bring people in. Or if you're in places where there's been civil war, Khmer Rouge and Funcenpec and, you know, all these different groups where there's been warring types, they come together. But it's a fabulous opportunity to bring people together on common ground for the future and with their knowledge, and it always works. That animosity is not maintained to the end. So it doesn't matter if they thought someone was a traitor or something or should be in re-education camp. By the end of the course that goes, and it's because of the way we mix up the groups all the time.
Except in Aboriginal culture.
I was about to say, Aboriginal culture, maybe that would be harder.
But that's not to say
there's that clear line between families.
Some people can't be in the same room.
No.
It's not to say though that on an individual level people aren't generally cooperative, and to bring it back to our teaching experience, on your micro teaching we'll be doing activities and asking for cooperation from our learners, and magically people do what they're asked. Most people are really keen to cooperate.
Like to be challenged when they feel safe.
This is the big takeaway. Learners like to be challenged when they feel safe. What's our understanding of this?
I'd substitute the word after for when.
When is there?
Yeah.
After they feel safe.
Yes.
Like to be challenged after they feel safe?
Not before they feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
When they have arrived at feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Not when they're just starting to tentatively hope that they will feel safe, and then you challenge them.
And it's 2 steps back.
Yeah.
They've been prepared, they've been given all the tools they need to then meet that challenge.
And the challenge is a challenge, so that can conflict with the feeling of safety on one level. Yeah. But we're saying if the conditions are right, you can always push people a certain amount. Pushing them this far won't work, but this far can lead to really interesting results.
You've also got those rules or guiding principles that help you challenge someone in a way that's respectful and
I'm not sure if someone said this earlier, if I just some bullshit I jotted down, but under like from the progression of dependent, semi-dependent, independent, autonomous, I really engaged with that, and with the dependent part, I've thought about what is it that makes them be dependent or feel a lack of confidence, and it's the lack of initiation. It's the fact that they're like, say someone's joined up for a PDC and hasn't really engaged with this stuff before, they don't feel like they're a Permie at all. They're not a Permie, like, and they have this understanding of themselves as not being a Permie. So I guess it's not so much, I mean, like, yeah, they should feel safe, it's part of it, but maybe it's also like initiation. They should feel like they should be challenged because they feel like they are in the community, they are initiated into. Yeah, they can take initiative, they can be challenged, be initiated. And like these principles, I guess, can play into rituals of initiation or just simply habits and customs.
And to me that relates to that awareness that learners often aren't confident.
Yeah.
Everyone feels they don't have enough Permie knowledge, they don't have enough teaching knowledge, they don't, you know, oh, maybe I shouldn't be here, I'm in the wrong course. Everyone's in the right course. Unless you signed up for a Thai cooking course and you're thinking, what have I done? This is such a disappointment.
From Thai.
So these are an awareness of this can remove barriers to learning. Likewise for the types of intelligence and for the awareness of learning styles. There's one more thing I'll cover very quickly before we go out to lunch. That pointing out errors has no positive effect whatsoever. And we'll say this a few times in the coming days. Pointing out errors has no positive effect at all. Why do we stress this point?
It's a negative thing.
How does it make learners feel?
Conducive to learning.
Yeah.
Down.
It's not great for learning. If our goal is learning, and as teachers, our goal is learning, we're looking for things that have a desired outcome of increasing learning. Now, something might be wrong. If something's very unsafe, of course, you know, you tell the child not to walk on the road. Yes. But in 99.9% of cases, something might be wrong or incorrect. We're using our non-violent communication to discuss these issues.
You mean errors in content, like errors in like what there's like just like their engagement with the course material. Is that what you mean?
Well, there's that
What do you mean
form.
by errors?
So someone says something like, you say, how do you plant a plant? And they say, I take the plastic pot and I dig a hole and I put the plant in the plastic pot in the ground. You can say wrong, or you can say, how does someone else plant it? And they say, take it out of the pot and I soak it in the ground. So that's terrific. That's going to give you better growth because. So there's no pointing out errors. There's just illustrating there is a better way that the class can think of, and often bringing something to class attention rather than the individual. And with behaviours, well, that's another topic. That's behaviours that challenge us. We say there are no difficult students, just behaviours that we're challenged by. Have we got the methods and the skills to deal with it?
Kids always say, that's a good guess.
It's beautiful.
what was happening to the feeding routes.
Yeah.
So we're running into lunchtime. Just to wrap up, we've covered the perceiving and processing of learning. We've talked about learning styles, we've talked about types of intelligence, we've covered learners' inherent qualities, and also moving towards autonomy as learners and teachers. I'd like to go around the circle and we're just going to say in one out breath, so a couple of words, something we've learned about learning this morning. Who'd like to start?
Need for initiation.
Great. Would you like to go around the circle? Oh, and
Diverse.
Lisa's up there too, sorry.
Learning styles.
Pass.
Be flexible.
Rachel?
Learning quadrants.
Learning qualities. A lot still to learn.
Pass.
Learning pioneers died.
The merits for consciously sitting in space of other learning styles.
Diversity of intelligence.
Not to preference my own learning style.
Learning styles are not personality traits.
Extremely valuable diversity. Complex.
IQ can be holistic.
All the things.
Adaptability to learners. Reading your group. Types of intelligence.
Richness through diversity.
Would a good grasp Brenna has got of this content?
Absolutely.
Rex and cats.
And the qualities of learners.
But Ollie's got a really good language understanding in other conditions. Talk to her.
That learning changes me and can be changed.
Constantly check in and ask students, what do you think?
Appreciating diversity of intelligence.
So apologies for running a little bit into lunch. Great time to mention that after lunch we're doing our micro teaching.
You all disappear.
Oh, if you're going to go that way, left hand on heart, right hand in the air, please. I like micro teaching.
I love micro teaching.
I've been in a group for 10 minutes before.
I've been in a group for 10 minutes before.
I was in a group for 10 minutes half an hour ago. I will come back after lunch. Micro teaching is awesome. If anyone is freaking out or does want to chat, here all lunchtime, I'd love to have a talk about it, and so are Greta and Ro. So
You haven't been given groups yet?
no, we'll do that in an activity just as we get going.